بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وأصحابه وسلم. Let's get started. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We are on session number 17 for Juz Tabarak. And alhamdulillah, we'll be finishing today and pausing for Ramadan, inshallah ta'ala. One second, I'm going to set something here. So inshallah, we'll pause for Ramadan, and after that, inshallah, we'll see how to resume bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. So if you have any feedback, comments, anything around that, please do send us an email. If you haven't signed up for the mailing list, the link is in the email that you would have received for this. So inshallah, you can let us know and sign up there. So once we announce something after Ramadan, you will be made aware of that. And if you have any feedback about how you would like to do it, and in person, online, which surah and so on and so forth, please do send us feedback, inshallah, as well. So with that, we'll be continuing with Surah An-Nuh, I believe. That's where we stopped. And sorry, Jinn. And was it Jinn or Nuh? Let me double check. No, I've forgotten. I think it was, let's see, because I was doing one of the other. Yes, so I think it's, so Nuh, verse number 21 is what we'll be starting with today, inshallah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. قال نوح رب إنهم عصوني واتبعوا من لم يزده ماله وولده إلا خسارا. One second, I'm just trying to confirm something. Yes. ومكروا مكرا كبارا وقالوا لا تذرن آلهتكم ولا تذرن ودا ولا سواعا ولا يغوث ويعوق ونسرا وقد أضلوا كثيرا ولا تزد الظالمين إلا ضلالا. Okay, let's talk about these verses and see how this helps us to reflect in our situation today. So in this scenario, obviously, Nuh alayhi salam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is quoting Nuh alayhi salam, communicating with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And one of the reflections that we had from last week was the notion that, you know, whenever you are in a situation where you feel worried, anxious, you are struggling with something, do not hesitate to talk to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Most of the time what we do is we talk to human beings and we try to find human comfort and companionship and so on and so forth, and obviously there's value to it. But a very reliable connection that we can develop is by having consistent communication and conversation with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, putting down our burdens, explaining our situation, and so on and so forth. And that's one of the etiquettes of dua, to realize our weakness, to humble ourselves, and to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for assistance. And now, more specifically, if we look at the situation, is Nuh alayhi salam. Now, he cares about his people. He's calling them to do good. He's calling them to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to leave the shirk and all different forms of shirk, but they are disobeying him. They are not listening to him. So you can imagine how tough such a situation can be. And we can relate that when we are doing da'wah, we are advising our family members or friends or relatives and so on and so forth. So this is a lesson for that, you know, that happens for us to rely on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to remember the efforts of the Anbiya, of how much they struggled, and, you know, how they persevered, and they were persistent, and they were consistent in their da'wah. And another thing that he's also pointing out here as also a lesson, that look, the people of Nuh alayhi salam were following who, right? So usually people follow the people who have power, who have wealth. And this is the same thing that was happening, that they were following those people. And that followership was leading them into destruction, into a big loss. So that's another lesson to learn for us, you know, as human beings, that if we are following, right, what is the criteria when it comes to following the truth? Are we following people based on their power, their influence, their number of followers, and so on and so forth? How do we determine who to listen to? How do we determine which content is beneficial, which content is true, which content is mixed with falsehood? What is our criteria of when we are seeking knowledge, when we are seeking advice, and we are trying to blind follow personalities? And the second thing, verse number 22, is mentioning that how they were plotting, right? So when truth comes and there's falsehood and there's truth, the people of falsehood would always plot and plan and have propaganda against the people of truth. They will utilize different sorts of media, different sorts of content to push down the truth and basically elevate the falsehood. As in this scenario, obviously we have example. What they were saying is that, look, stick to these idols, right? Wad, Su'a, Yaghuth, Ya'uq, wa Nasr. All these were names of the idols that they were saying, no, don't worry about Nuh alayhi salam, follow these people, follow these idols, these are the right way, worship them, and so on and so forth. Now, obviously, we don't have these idols, but we have something else, right? So there are philosophies. There are different types of philosophies. There are different types of ideologies, from the deviant sects in the Muslims to the kuffar, to the different alphabets, to all these different things. And people are calling, no, this is the way. This is the way of justice. This is the way that we should be following. So there's always going to be the callers to falsehood. And they will make a huge propaganda. They will try to impress. They will try to call people based on their wealth, their power, and all the different sorts of tactics of influence that they will bring about. So something, and it just continues. It was a different form at the time of Nuh alayhi salam, and it is different form today. And Nuh alayhi salam complains to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that, look, this methodology, these people, they have misguided huge number of people, and it's not increasing the wrongdoers except in more misguidance. Day by day, they are falling into more misguidance. So this was the situation. Now we have something similar again. The battle between truth, the caller to truth, and the caller to falsehood continues and will continue. And the lesson here is to be consistent, to be persistent, to make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as callers to the truth. And as followers, for us to be aware of these different things and different propagandas that different people and different ideologies will do against the truth, so that we can be cautious to, first and foremost, protect ourselves, and secondly, to protect our family members and our children, and so on and so forth. So with that, let's continue on to the next verses. مما خطيئاتهم أغرقوا فأدخلوا نارا فلم يجدوا لهم من دون الله أنصارا. So because of their sins, they were drowned. Okay, so that was the punishment in this dunya, right? So the punishment is dunya also come. It took them in by flood, and then most importantly, or more importantly, the situation in the hereafter was they were entered into fire, and they did not find any helpers against Allah. So yes, in this world they had these allies and forces and groups and this and that and people of power and nobility and so on and so forth, but all that goes to waste. So something for us to really think about, that sometimes we may have these people around us, friends, customer, colleagues, clients, investors, donors, whatever, different types of relations, right? Spouse, family members, in-laws, but they may be calling us potentially against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if we just keep following that, that's what will happen to us, and we'll be falling into loss. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us. So always think about that. Okay, who am I trying to please from the creation? And is it coming at the cost of displeasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Now, at this situation, Nuh alayhi salam, after doing da'wah for several hundred years, 950 years and so on, he now makes a dua against them. And he says to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَقَالَ نُوحٌ رَبِّ لَا تَذَرْ عَلَى الْأَرْضِ مِنَ الْكَافِرِينَ دَيَّارًا إِنَّكَ إِن تَذَرْهُمْ يُضِلُّوا عِبَادَكَ وَلَا يَلِدُوا إِلَّا فَاجِرًا كَفَّارًا. So again, he makes a dua against them, that to destroy them and not to leave them, because that's all that's coming out of them. Now, In this scenario, I think the reflection that I'm going to take away from that is to also be careful about, displeasing and fighting and going against the wali of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? If we are wrongdoing, if we are committing injustice, we are transgressing against someone, and they make a dua against us, that could really be a cause of destruction. And even if it doesn't happen in this world, we are accountable to other people. So that's my reflection around that, is to be careful and is to not go against and ridicule or belittle the people of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, at the same time, we see, and we wrap up this with verse number 28, in which Nuh alayhi salam is saying, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is quoting him, رَبِّ اغْفِرْ لِي وَلِوَالِدَيَّ وَلِمَنْ دَخَلَ بَيْتِيَ مُؤْمِنًا وَلِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ وَالْمُؤْمِنَاتِ وَلَا تَزِدِ الظَّالِمِينَ إِلَّا تَبَارًا. Oh my Lord, forgive me, my parents, and whoever enters my house in faith, and all believing men and women, and increase the wrongdoers only in destruction. So there's a lot of lessons to be learned here as well. So firstly, the notion of not just being accepting of everyone, realizing that yes, there is truth and there is falsehood. There are people of truth and there are people of falsehood. So sometimes we just say, you know what, everything is okay and everyone, is human being and Allah loves everyone. That is, a false notion that we should also avoid. If you are people of truth, you should call spade a spade, right? So it's not that everything is fine. No, you have to realize that there are people who are zalim, who are transgressors. They're transgressing against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The other form of it is to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for forgiveness and not to feel arrogant, not to be, confident that, look, I have done enough. There's nothing wrong with me. I will be forgiven. I'm from the people of Jannah and so on and so forth. So what is Nuh alayhi salam saying and doing here is, oh Allah, forgive me. So he's seeking forgiveness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for himself, first and foremost, for himself. Okay. Then secondly, to ask forgiveness for our parents. So something to think about. Do I do that? How many times do I do it while having my heart present? How many times do I actually seek forgiveness while having my heart present? Not just like a lip service, astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah. No, I'm actually seeking forgiveness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for myself, for my family members, for my parents. And then also not just being selfish, but to also seek forgiveness for the believing men and the believing women. So that's the state of a believer, that he is, he wishes well for them, and not only in front of them, but even behind them, he or she is making dua for them as well. So that's a lesson as well, to make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for ourselves, our parents, and others. And not only about the matters of the dunya, but more importantly, the matters of the akhirah. And if I may comment, there's another thing, right? So, when it comes to it, some of the interesting things that we do, like, when people are going for Hajj or Umrah, now people have started using like Google Forms and, give me a dua list and things like that. Allahu alam, I mean, people can also be generic, right? You go, you make dua with name, without name, for your friends, for your loved ones, for people who are your companions, family members, that, oh Allah, give them goodness of this dunya, goodness of the hereafter, and protect them from the punishment of the hellfire, or general du'as like that, and so on and so forth. Give them good health, give them good tawfiq, give them iman, increase them in their iman, and so on and so forth. And even if someone does it, like specific du'as, I don't think there's any harm with that. But in general, I think specific and general du'as are good enough as well, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. So with this, alhamdulillah, we have completed it. So this is our 17th session. For those of you who are just joining now and just catching up in the series, or just watching it, if you want to, this is a great opportunity. You can utilize Ramadan to catch up on all the 17 series episodes, and that will take you from just about from Surah Al-Mulk to the end of Surah Nuh. And this way you can also follow the Arabic session, which will be starting in a second, to catch up on the vocabulary. So with that, subhanakallahumma bihamdika nashhadu an la ilaha illa ant nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk.